The sound of shattering glass pierced through the Lagos night like a scream. I froze in the corridor outside apartment 14B, my hand hovering over my own door just 3 meters away. The takeout bag from Mama Cass's restaurant slipped from my fingers, jollof rice spilling across the polished marble floor. "You think I'm a fool, Adanna?" The voice, Mr. Chukwudi's voice, was unrecognizable. Gone was the smooth, controlled tone I'd heard countless times in the elevator. This was something raw, something dangerous. "Please, Chidi, you're not listening." The crash that followed made my heart stop. Welcome to Story by TJ, where we bring you the most compelling tales of love, betrayal, and justice from across Africa. If you're new here, subscribe now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. And if you're enjoying this story, hit that like button. Now, let me tell you about the night I witnessed something that would change 3 lives forever. I should have walked away, should have opened my door, locked it, and pretended I'd heard nothing. That's what you do in Lagos when you hear things that aren't your business. You mind your space. You protect your peace. But my feet wouldn't move. I'd lived in Pinnacle Heights for exactly 8 months. Ever since my transfer to the Lagos office made my Ibadan commute impossible. The luxury high-rise in Victoria Island was beyond anything I'd imagined affording on my HR officer's salary, but the company subsidy made it possible. Just barely. In those 8 months, I'd seen the Chukwudis maybe 20 times. Always in passing. Always picture perfect. Mr. Chidi Chukwudi with his designer suits and Italian leather shoes, his phone always pressed to his ear, discussing millions like they were Sunday offering. Mrs. Adanna Chukwudi with her Brazilian hair and red bottom heels, her laughter like wind chimes, always heading to one society event or another. They were the couple everyone whispered about with a mix of envy and admiration. Old money meeting new money. Power meeting beauty. I'd envied them if I'm being honest. Envied the ease with which they moved through the world, the way doors, literal and metaphorical, opened before they even reached for the handles. Now, pressed against the wall of this corridor, I envied them nothing. "Chidi, please." Adanna's voice cracked. "You're hurting me." The sound that came next was unmistakable. Flesh meeting flesh. A body hitting a wall with a force that rattled the picture frames I couldn't see. My hand found my phone in my jacket pocket. My fingers trembled over the screen. Emergency number. Security. Someone. But my brain was calculating faster than my conscience could keep up. Mr. Chukwudi wasn't just any resident. He wasn't just wealthy. He was on the building's board of directors. He golfed with the deputy governor. His face was on billboards across Lagos for his telecommunications company, Folktale. The security guards downstairs called him Sir, with a reverence usually reserved for deity. And me? I was Obiageli Nwosu, 28 years old, HR officer earning 400,000 naira a month before tax. Renting, not owning, a 1-bedroom apartment that cost half my salary. No family connections. No backup plan if this job disappeared. "You embarrassed me today, Adanna." Mr. Chukwudi's voice was closer now, right near the door. At the golf club, flirting with Senator Okafor like some cheap. I was being polite. "You told me to network with your associates." Another crash. This one accompanied by Adanna's cry of pain. My thumb hovered over the call button. 3 months ago, I'd watched Mr. Chukwudi slip the building manager an envelope thick with cash, laughing about some small misunderstanding with parking regulations. Last month, I'd seen him in the lobby when another resident complained about noise from his apartment during a party. The complaint had disappeared. The resident had moved out 2 weeks later. This was a man who made problems disappear. And I was about to become a very big problem.
"Chibi, I'm bleeding."
"Then maybe next time you'll remember who you belong to." The words sent ice through my veins. Not because of their cruelty, though that was bad enough, but because of what they revealed. This wasn't the first time. This was a pattern. A routine. The practiced efficiency of a man who knew exactly how much force to use, exactly what words would cut deepest. How many nights had I heard music from their apartment and thought they were entertaining? How many closed doors had I walked past, never questioning what lay beyond? I thought of my own mother, Thought of the woman she'd been before my father's death. Bright, vibrant, full of laughter. Thought of what silence and complicity had cost her when Uncle Emeka had tried to cheat her out of her inheritance. How the family had told her to stay quiet, to not make trouble, to accept what the men decided. She'd fought back, alone, and she'd won. But she'd also warned me, Obiageli, pick your battles. Some fights will cost you everything. Was this my battle to pick? The apartment fell silent, terrifyingly silent. I forced myself to move, to take one step back toward my own door. My hand was on the handle when I heard it. A soft, broken sound that I recognized immediately because I'd made that same sound once, years ago, when I'd thought no one could hear me. Adanna was crying. Not the loud, dramatic crying you see in Nollywood films. This was the crying of someone who'd learned that noise brought consequences. Muffled, desperate, utterly defeated. My hand fell away from my door handle. I pulled out my phone and did something that would haunt me for weeks. Something I couldn't explain even to myself. I opened the voice recorder app and pressed record. Then I stood there in that corridor, my heart hammering so loudly I was certain they could hear it through the walls, and I documented everything. Every sound. Every word that filtered through that supposedly soundproof door. "Clean yourself up," Mr. Chukwudi said finally. His voice had returned to normal, controlled, almost bored. "We have the Adeleaks dinner party tomorrow. I need you presentable." "Yes, Chidi." "And Adanna? Next time I find you looking at another man the way you looked at Okafor, I won't be so gentle. Do you understand?" A pause that stretched into eternity. "I understand." I heard movement, water running, the domestic sounds of a bathroom, incongruously normal after what had just transpired. My phone showed 4 minutes and 37 seconds of recording. 4 minutes and 37 seconds that could ruin Mr. Chukwudi. 4 minutes and 37 seconds that could ruin me. I finally made it into my apartment, locked the door, and slid down to the floor, my whole body shaking. The jollof rice was still in the corridor. Evidence of my presence that I'd have to clean up before anyone saw it. But first, I had to figure out what to do with the bomb I just armed. Because in Lagos, knowledge was currency. And I'd just become very, very rich. The question was, how long before someone tried to rob me? I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. That sickening thud of a body hitting the wall. The muffled crying. The cold, calculated control in Mr. Chukwudi's voice when he told his wife to clean herself up. By 5 a.m., I'd listened to the recording 17 times. Each time I told myself I'd delete it. Each time my finger hovered over the button. Each time I couldn't do it. Instead, I did what any paranoid person would do in Lagos. I backed it up. Sent it to my email with a vague subject line, "Building Noise Complaint, 14B. Uploaded it to my Google Drive in a folder labeled Random Recordings. Even airdropped it to my old iPad that I kept in my wardrobe. If something happened to my phone, the evidence would survive. The thought made me laugh. A sharp, bitter sound in the darkness of my bedroom. Evidence of what exactly? That I was an eavesdropper? That I'd stood in a corridor recording my neighbors instead of calling the police like a normal person? I imagined trying to explain this to anyone. To my mother in Enugu, who would ask why I was getting involved in big people's business. To my friend Kechi, who would call me crazy for risking my job and apartment over a couple I barely knew. They'd all ask the same question. What did you think was going to happen? Obiageli? I didn't have an answer. The morning came too quickly. I had to be at the office by 8 a.m. We had interviews scheduled for the new marketing positions. I dragged myself through my routine like a zombie. Shower, skincare, the navy blue blazer and ochre pencil skirt I'd pressed the night before. My hand trembled as I applied my lipstick. In the mirror, my eyes looked hollow, haunted. Get it together, Obi, I told myself. You're going to work. Normal day, normal life. But nothing felt normal anymore. The elevator ride down was torture. I kept my eyes fixed on the floor numbers, praying no one would get on at the 14th floor, praying I wouldn't have to stand in that small space with either of the Chukwudis, making small talk while images from last night played in my head. The elevator stopped at 14. My breath caught. The doors opened. Adanna Chukwudi stepped in and the world tilted. She looked perfect. Absolutely perfect. Her makeup was flawless. A subtle bronze eye, nude lips, just a hint of blush. Her cream-colored pantsuit was crisp and expensive, probably from that boutique in Lekki that charged my monthly salary for a single outfit. Her signature Brazilian hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. If I hadn't heard what I'd heard, seen what I'd seen, or rather heard what sounded like what I'd heard, I would never have suspected anything. But I had heard it, and now I couldn't unsee the truth beneath the perfection. I looked closer, studied her the way I'd been trained to study job applicants for tells, for inconsistencies. There, just at her wrist, where her gold Cartier bracelet didn't quite cover it, a bruise, purple-blue, finger-shaped, and her makeup, too perfect, too carefully applied, the kind of careful that comes from covering something. "Good morning, Obiageli." Her voice was warm, friendly, the same voice I'd heard dozens of times before. Took me 3 seconds too long to respond. "Good morning, Mrs. Chukwudi." She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Please call me Adanna. We're neighbors, not strangers. We're not friends either, I thought but didn't say. How are you settling in?" She continued as the elevator descended. "Chidi mentioned he hasn't seen you at any of the building social events. You should come to the next one. Good way to meet people." Chidi. She said his name so casually, so naturally, as if that same man hadn't been slamming her against walls 12 hours ago. "I've been very busy with work," I managed. "But thank you for the invitation. What do you do again?" "I know Chidi told me, but I have the worst memory." Liar, I thought. Women like Adanna Chukwudi didn't forget details. She was fishing, testing me. The question was, why? Human resources. "I work for Zenith Global Solutions." "Oh, how interesting. You must know all the secrets then. Who's getting hired, who's getting fired, who's sleeping with who." She laughed, light and airy. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened onto the marble lobby with its excessive chandelier and bored security guards. I stepped out quickly, eager to escape. "It's not quite that dramatic. Have a lovely day, Mrs. Adanna." "You too, dear." I felt her eyes on my back all the way across the lobby. Work was a disaster. I sat through the morning interviews barely processing anything the candidates said. My phone felt like it was burning a hole through my handbag. The recording, the evidence, the secret. "Ms. Nwosu, did you get that?" My colleague, Tund, was staring at me with concern. I blinked. We were interviewing a young man for the marketing assistant position. He'd apparently just said something I was supposed to have noted. "Sorry, could you repeat that?" The candidate looked uncomfortable. Tund shot me a look that said, "What is wrong with you?" I forced myself to focus for the rest of the interview, but my mind kept drifting back to that elevator ride, to the bruise on Adanna's wrist, to the way she'd looked at me, really looked at me, as if she could see straight through my professional mask to the knowledge I was carrying. Did she know I'd heard? No.
Impossible.
I'd been quiet, careful, and even if she'd heard something in the corridor, there was no way to know it was me specifically. Could have been any of the other residents on that floor. But then why did it feel like she knew? Lunchtime came, and I escaped to the small garden area behind our office building. I needed air, space, distance from the fluorescent lights and small talk. I pulled out my phone and stared at the recording app. Delete it. Just delete it and move on with your life. Instead, I found myself Googling what to do if you witness domestic violence. The results were overwhelming. Hotlines, legal resources, advice about safety plans and documentation, stories from survivors and advocates. One article caught my eye. Why Witnesses Don't Report: The Complex Reality of Domestic Violence. I clicked it. Bystanders often face a moral dilemma when witnessing intimate partner violence. Fear of retaliation, uncertainty about the victim's wishes, concern about police response, and the power dynamics between the abuser and potential witnesses can all contribute to silence. Every word felt personal, accusatory. "Obi, there you are." I nearly dropped my phone. Nkechi, my friend from accounts, plopped down beside me with her lunch bag. Girl, you look terrible. What happened? Man trouble? Because I told you that guy from IT was a waste of time.
I'm fine.
Just tired. Nkechi narrowed her eyes. She'd known me since university. She could read me better than anyone. You're lying. What's going on? For a moment, just a moment, I considered telling her everything, unburdening myself to someone who might understand, who might help me figure out what to do. But Nkechi was also a gossip. Not maliciously, just enthusiastically social. A secret shared with Nkechi was a secret that would be all over the office by tomorrow. Just trouble sleeping, I said. My neighbor was loud last night. Kept me up. Which neighbor? Not that fine man in 14B. Nkechi grinned. Because if he's being loud, I volunteer to help investigate. That man is fine like imported wine. My stomach turned. It's not funny, Nkechi. She blinked at my sharp tone. Okay, sorry. Didn't know it was that serious. You should complain to building management. Yeah, maybe I will. But we both knew I wouldn't. The rest of the workday crawled by in a fog. By 6 p.m., I was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with the interviews or paperwork. The commute back to Pinnacle Heights felt like a march to execution. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, all 14 flights, because I couldn't risk another encounter. My legs burned by the time I reached my floor, but the physical pain was almost welcome. A distraction. As I approached my door, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The jollof rice I'd spilled last night, it was gone. The corridor was spotless, as if nothing had ever happened. But tucked under my door was a small envelope. Cream-colored. Expensive paper. No name on the outside. My hands shook as I picked it up and unlocked my door. Inside, I opened the envelope. A single card, embossed with gold lettering. Thank you for your discretion. True neighbors know when to mind their business. A friend.
No signature.
No name. But I knew exactly who it was from. And I knew, with a certainty that made my knees weak, that everything had just become infinitely more complicated. Because Adanna Chukwudi knew I'd been in that corridor. The only question was, what was she going to do about it? I didn't leave my apartment for 3 days. Called in sick to work, something I never did. Told my supervisor I had malaria, which in Lagos was believable enough that no one asked questions. Nkechi sent me concerned WhatsApp messages that I answered with just enough detail to seem genuine but not enough to invite a visit. The truth was I was terrified. That card sat on my coffee table like a live grenade. I'd read it so many times the words were burned into my brain. Thank you for your discretion. Discretion implied choice. Implied I'd actively decided to stay silent, rather than frozen in fear and confusion. It made me complicit in a way that felt suffocating. True neighbors know when to mind their business. A warning wrapped in gratitude. The velvet glove over the iron fist. But the part that kept me up at night was the last line. A friend. Not from Adanna. Not from the Chukwudis. A friend. As if we were in this together. As if we shared some secret understanding. I spent those 3 days doing what I should have done immediately. Research. Chidi Chukwudi wasn't just wealthy. He was connected in ways that made my earlier concerns seem naive. Folktale wasn't just successful. It had government contracts. Infrastructure deals. His name appeared in business journals, society pages, political donation records. I found photos from charity galas, political fundraisers, business conferences. In every single one, Adanna was beside him, perfect, poised, smiling. The ideal wife. I searched for any hint of scandal, any whisper of violence. Nothing. His reputation was spotless. Philanthropist, business leader, family man. The articles about Adanna were different. Society pages mostly. Best dressed at some event. Power couples of Lagos. One feature in Genevieve magazine about her fashion sense and her secret to a happy marriage. I clicked on that one, morbidly curious. Communication and respect. Adanna Chukwudi tells me. Her smile radiant as we sit in the library of their Ikoyi mansion. Chidi and I make it a priority to honor each other. Marriage is a partnership, and like any successful business, it requires trust, dedication, and mutual support. I closed my laptop before I threw it across the room. On the fourth day, I had to return to work. Rent wouldn't pay itself, and my savings account was already depressing enough without adding unpaid leave to the equation. I took the stairs again, left early, came home late, ordered food delivery instead of cooking. Anything to avoid the corridors, the elevator, the possibility of running into either of the Chukwudis. It worked for exactly 5 days. On day 6, I ran out of drinking water. The dispenser in my apartment was empty, and I'd forgotten to refill the bottles. It was 9 p.m., late enough that most residents would be settled in for the night. I grabbed my empty bottles and headed for the building's water filtration room on the ground floor. The corridor was empty. The elevator ride was blessedly silent. I filled my bottles quickly, efficiently, my eyes on the door the entire time. I was almost back to the elevator when I heard voices. Don't care what excuse you have to give him. I need those documents by tomorrow. Mr. Chukwudi's voice, coming from the building manager's office just around the corner. I should have pressed the elevator button and waited. Should have pretended I heard nothing, like the good, discreet neighbor I was supposed to be. Instead, I found myself edging closer, my footsteps silent on the marble floor. Sir, I understand, but the board requires. The board requires what I tell them to require, Emeka. Or have you forgotten who got you this position? No, sir. Of course not, sir. Good. Then we understand each other. Some financial records are sensitive. They don't need to be in the official audit. Do we have an agreement? Pause. I could practically hear the building manager's internal struggle. Yes, sir. We have an agreement. Excellent. I'll have my assistant send you the details. Oh, and Emeka? I heard Mrs. Chukwudi had a small accident last week. Slipped in the bathroom. You know how these luxury tiles can be treacherous when wet. My blood ran cold. Of course, sir. I hope she's recovered well. She has. But if anyone asks, maintenance, other residents, anyone, that's the story. A slip. An accident. Nothing more. I'd hate for rumors to start circulating. Bad for everyone, you understand? I understand completely, sir. I heard movement. They were wrapping up their conversation. I ran as quietly as possible back to the elevator. Pressed the button frantically. The display showed it was on the 10th floor, descending. Too slow. Footsteps approached. Mr. Chukwudi was coming. I spotted the stairwell door and dove for it, slipping through just as I heard his voice in the lobby. Good night, Emeka. Remember, discretion is everything. I stood in the stairwell, my heart pounding so loud I was certain he could hear it through the walls. The water bottles felt impossibly heavy in my hands. After what felt like an eternity, I cracked open the door. The lobby was empty. I took the stairs all the way back to the 14th floor, my legs burning, my mind racing. Financial irregularities. Covering up domestic violence as a bathroom accident. Buying the building manager's silence. The recording on my phone suddenly felt like a child's toy compared to what I just overheard. This wasn't just about a marriage gone wrong. This was about a man who had systems in place. Who bought silence like other people bought groceries. A man who was very, very dangerous. I was so lost in thought that I didn't notice the person standing outside my apartment until I was 3 steps away. Adanna Chukwudi. She was wearing casual clothes, yoga pants and an oversized sweater, but she looked as put together as ever. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup that I could see. And no bruises visible either. Whatever he'd done, she'd had time to heal. Or hide. Obiageli. She smiled. It was warm. Genuine even. I was hoping to catch you. Do you have a moment? Every instinct screamed at me to say no. To make an excuse. To get inside my apartment and lock the door. But there was something in her eyes. Something desperate beneath the polish. Of course, I heard myself say. Could we talk inside? I'd prefer privacy. This was it. The moment where I had to decide. Open the door and let her in, or refuse and make an enemy of someone who clearly had her husband's ear. Neither option felt safe. I unlocked my door. Adanna Chukwudi stepped into my apartment, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't begin to predict. She turned to face me, and when she spoke, her voice was nothing like the society wife from the elevator. "I know you heard us that night," she said quietly, "and I need your help." For a moment, neither of us moved. Adanna stood in the center of my small living room, looking impossibly elegant even in yoga pants. I hovered near the door, still holding the water bottles like they were shields. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said finally. She smiled sad, knowing. "Yes, you do. The jollof rice in the corridor. The way you couldn't look at me in the elevator. The fact that you've been taking the stairs for over a week now." She gestured to the water bottles in my hands. "Even tonight, you waited until late, thinking the building would be empty." My mouth went dry. "Mrs. Chukwudi." "Adanna." She moved to my small couch and sat down without invitation, as if we were old friends. "Please, see, I'm not here to threaten you." I didn't move. "The card you sent said enough." Her eyes widened. "What card?" "Don't play games. The one thanking me for my discretion, reminding me to mind my business." Something flickered across her face. Confusion, then understanding, then something that looked like fear. "Obiageli, I didn't send you any card." The water bottle slipped from my hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. "What? I didn't send it. I didn't even know you'd been in the corridor that night until 2 days ago, when Chidi mentioned that one of the neighbors had dropped food outside their door and never came back for it. He was irritated about the mess. Asked security to check the cameras." My legs nearly gave out. Cameras. Of course there were cameras in the corridors. How had I not thought about that? "The footage showed you," Adanna continued softly, "standing outside our door for almost 5 minutes. Your phone in your hand." I sank into the chair across from her. I didn't know what to do. I heard. My voice cracked. I heard everything. And I didn't know if I should call someone, or. "You recorded it, didn't you?" There was no point in lying. "Yes." Instead of anger, relief flooded her face. "Thank God."
Isterte her.
"What?" "I need that recording, Obiageli. I need proof of what he does. Not just that night, there have been others. But he's always so careful. Never leaves marks where people can see. Never does it when anyone's around. Or so I thought." My mind was reeling. "If you didn't send the card, then who?" "Chidi." Her voice was flat. "He must have. He knows someone witnessed that night. He probably thinks you're going to try to blackmail him, or report him, or." She trailed off, her hands twisting in her lap. "He's been paranoid lately, checking my phone, following my movements. He suspects I'm planning something." "Are you?" She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw past the society wife facade to the woman underneath. Scared, exhausted, determined. "I'm leaving him. I have a lawyer. A good one who specializes in high-profile divorces. But I need evidence. Real evidence. Chidi has friends everywhere. Judges, police commissioners, media owners. Without proof, it becomes my word against his. And we both know whose word carries more weight in Lagos." I thought of the conversation I'd overheard earlier. The building manager. The financial irregularities. The casual way Chidi had rewritten reality to call domestic violence a bathroom accident. "Why me?" I asked. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're not part of his world. You don't owe him anything. And because..." She hesitated. "Because I saw your face in that elevator. You were disgusted. Angry. Most people in this building, they'd look the other way. They'd protect their investments, their relationships with Chidi. But you looked like you wanted to hurt him as much as I do." She wasn't wrong. "What do you want from me?" "The recording. And your testimony if it comes to that. I know it's a lot to ask. I know it could cost you your job, your apartment, maybe more. But Obiageli, I am drowning. And you are the only lifeline I have." She left 20 minutes later, without the recording. I told her I needed time to think. She'd understood, or at least pretended to. Given me her personal number, private email address. Told me she'd be in Abuja for 3 days starting tomorrow. Meeting with her lawyer. Think about it, she'd said at the door. But please think quickly. I don't know how much time I have before Chidi figures out what I'm planning. After she left, I sat in the darkness of my apartment, my mind spinning. I believed her. That was the terrifying part. Every word she'd said rang true. The fear in her eyes, the desperation in her voice. That couldn't be faked. But believing her and helping her were two very different things. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Nwosu, this is Chidi Chukwudi. I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to personally apologize if there was any disturbance from our apartment last week. My wife had a small accident. Slipped in the bathroom, and I'm afraid we may have been loud in our concern. If you have any worries about the incident, please feel free to reach out. We value good neighbors who understand that homes, even in luxury buildings, have their private moments. Best regards, CC. I read it 3 times, my blood turning to ice. The message was clear. He knew. He knew I'd heard. He knew I had questions. And he was preemptively managing the narrative while simultaneously warning me to stay quiet. We value good neighbors who understand that homes have their private moments. Translation, mind your business or else. Another text came through, this one from a different number. Obiageli, it's Adanna. I just landed in Abuja. Thank you for listening tonight. Whatever you decide, I understand. But please be careful. Chidi is not a man who forgives easily. Delete this message after reading. I sat there with 2 phones numbers, 2 opposing forces, and a recording that could either save a woman or destroy my life. Maybe both. The next morning, I woke to find my car had a flat tire. Both back tires, actually. Slashed cleanly, deliberately. The security guard was apologetic. We don't know what happened, madam. No cameras in the parking garage. Must have been thieves. But I knew better. This wasn't random. This was a message. I took an Uber to work, my paranoia now in full bloom. Every car that followed too closely. Every person who looked at me twice. I was seeing threats everywhere. At the office, Tund pulled me aside. Obi, you okay? You seem off. I'm fine. Because HR got a strange call yesterday. Someone asking about your employment status. Claiming to be from a property management company. Verifying your income for a rental application. My stomach dropped. What did you tell them? Nothing. We don't give out that information without written authorization. But Obi, you're not applying for a new place, are you?
No.
Then why would someone be checking on you? I had no answer that wouldn't sound insane. That evening, I returned home to find another envelope under my door. This one wasn't cream-colored and elegant. This was plain white. Cheap paper. Inside was a single photograph. Me, standing in the corridor outside apartment 14B, my phone in my hand. And on the back, written in neat handwriting, some secrets are worth keeping. Others are expensive to share. Choose wisely. My hands shook so badly I dropped the photo. Adanna wanted me to be her witness, her salvation. Chidi wanted me to be silent, complicit. And I was trapped between them, holding evidence that could liberate one and destroy the other. The question was, which choice would destroy me first? I stopped sleeping altogether. Every sound in the night made me jump. Every car engine in the parking garage. Every footstep in the corridor. I kept my phone charged at all times. The recording backed up in so many places I'd lost count. The photograph sat in my bedside drawer. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. It was evidence too, in its own twisted way. Evidence that I was being watched, monitored, threatened. On the 3rd day after receiving it, I made a decision. I called Adanna's number. She answered on the first ring. Obiageli, I need to meet you. Somewhere public. Somewhere he won't see us. I'm still in Abuja. I can be back tomorrow.
No.
Not tomorrow. Today. I'll come to Abuja. A pause. I could hear her breathing, calculating. The Transcorp Hilton. Meet me in the lobby cafe at 3 p.m. Come alone. I hung up before I could change my mind. The flight to Abuja was the longest hour of my life. I'd called in sick again. My supervisor was starting to sound concerned rather than sympathetic. Used money I didn't have for a last-minute ticket. Wore sunglasses and a headscarf like some poorly disguised spy in a bad Nollywood film. But paranoia, I was learning, wasn't irrational when people were actually watching you. The Transcorp Hilton was everything my Pinnacle Heights apartment pretended to be. Genuinely luxurious, effortlessly elegant. I felt out of place in my simple dress and worn handbag, surrounded by politicians, business people, and society women who looked like they belonged. Adanna was waiting in a corner booth, wearing a navy blue dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But her face was bare of makeup, and there were shadows under her eyes that no amount of expensive concealer could have hidden. She saw me and stood. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Two women bound by circumstances neither of us had chosen. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I slid into the booth across from her. "I can't keep living like this. I need to know what I'm dealing with. All of it." She nodded slowly. "What do you want to know? How long has he been hitting you?" 3 years. Started small, a push here, a grab there. Then it escalated. The night you heard. That wasn't even one of the worst ones. My stomach churned. "Why did you stay? Why does any woman stay?" Her voice was sharp, defensive. Then she softened.
I'm sorry.
"That wasn't fair. You're asking honest questions." She stirred her untouched coffee. At first, I thought I could fix it. Thought if I was better, more careful, more perfect, he'd stop. Then I realized it wasn't about me. It was about control. And now I'm done. My lawyer says with the right evidence, we can file for divorce and get me a protection order. Chidi will fight it. He always fights, but with proof. She looked at me intently. "With your recording, we have a chance." I pulled out my phone, opened the file, slid it across the table. "Listen to it first. Make sure it's what you need." She picked up the phone with trembling hands. I watched her face as she listened, watched the pain, the recognition, the validation of finally having someone else hear what she'd been living through. When it finished, tears were streaming down her face. "This is it," she whispered. "This is exactly what I need. Can you send it to me?" And she hesitated. "Would you be willing to testify? To swear in a legal document that you recorded this, that it's authentic?" This was the moment, the point of no return. "Yes," I said. "I'll testify." We spent 2 hours going over everything. She explained the legal process, what my testimony would entail, the protections her lawyer could offer. It all sounded reasonable, manageable even. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen and went pale. "It's Chidi. Don't answer. If I don't, he'll know something's wrong. He thinks I'm at a spa with friends." She answered, her voice transforming instantly into something bright and casual. "Hello, darling." I couldn't hear his words, but I could hear his tone. Sharp, suspicious. "Yes, I'm still at the spa. No, I told you we're having dinner after." "Chidi, I don't understand why you're upset. I'm not lying to you." Her hand was gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. "Fine." "Yes, I'll send you a photo. Give me a moment." She hung up. Her hands were shaking. "He wants proof I'm where I said I'd be. He does this sometimes. Tests me." She quickly scrolled through her photos, found one from a previous spa visit, and sent it. Within seconds, her phone rang again. "That photo is from last month, Adanna. I can tell from your hair. Where are you?" I could hear his voice now, cold, controlled, furious. "I'm in Abuja," she said quietly. "I needed to get away." The phone exploded with sound, shouting, threats, the voice of a man who just realized he was losing control. Adanna ended the call. Her face was ashen. "He knows I'm lying about something. He'll figure out the rest." She stood abruptly. "I need to get back to Lagos. Tonight. I need to get to my lawyer and file the papers before he..." "Before he what?" She looked at me, and I saw genuine fear. "Before he stops me." We took the same flight back. Adanna sat in first class, I sat in economy. We didn't acknowledge each other in the airport or on the plane. But as we landed in Lagos, my phone buzzed with a text from her. He's sending his driver to pick me up. I'm going straight to my lawyer from the airport. Thank you, Obiageli, for everything. I'll be in touch tomorrow. I texted back, be safe. That was at 8 p.m. By midnight, every news station in Lagos was running the same breaking story. Billionaire Chidi Chukwudi's wife hospitalized after serious accident. Sources say Mrs. Adanna Chukwudi lost control of her vehicle on 3rd Mainland Bridge. Condition critical. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, my whole body numb. Ms. Nwosu. Chidi Chukwudi's voice was smooth as silk. I assume you've heard about my wife's tragic accident. I wanted to reach out personally because I know how much she valued your friendship. These next few days will be difficult. I hope I can count on your discretion and support during this challenging time. What did you do to her? My voice was barely a whisper. I didn't do anything. My wife was in an accident. Tragic, but these things happen. Now, Ms. Nwosu, I trust you understand the importance of privacy during family crises. I'd hate for rumors or speculation to make an already painful situation worse. Is she alive? Pause. She's in ICU. The doctors say the next 24 hours are critical. I'm sure you'll join me in praying for her recovery. He hung up. I sat in my apartment, shaking, the weight of my choice crushing down on me. I tried to help, tried to do the right thing. And now Adanna was fighting for her life. The recording on my phone suddenly felt like a death sentence, hers, mine, or both. I didn't go to work the next day. Instead, I sat in front of my laptop, staring at news updates about Adanna's accident. The reports were consistent. Loss of control on 3rd Mainland Bridge. Vehicle plunged into the lagoon. Rescue teams recovered her barely conscious. No other vehicles involved. Every article quoted the same police spokesman. We're investigating, but preliminary findings suggest a tragic accident. No mention of suspicious circumstances. No questions about the perfect timing. Just hours after her husband discovered she'd lied about her whereabouts. I knew what everyone else didn't. This was no accident. My phone had been buzzing all morning. Kechi worried about my absence. My supervisor now clearly irritated. My mother, her weekly check-in. I ignored them all except one message. It came from a number I didn't recognize. Obiageli Nwosu. My name is Barrister Chinanai Okoye. I represent Adanna Chukwudi. Before the accident, she sent me a file and a letter naming you as a witness. We need to talk. Urgently. This number is secure. I stared at that message for 20 minutes before I called. Barrister Okoye was not what I expected. She was young. Maybe 35, with short natural hair, minimal makeup, and an intensity that made me sit up straighter even through the phone. Ms. Nwosu, thank you for calling. I'll be direct because we don't have time for pleasantries. Adanna sent me your recording the night before her accident. She also sent me a detailed letter explaining everything. The abuse, your involvement as a witness, and her fears about what her husband might do if he discovered her plans. Is she alive? I couldn't help asking. Yes, barely. She's in a medically induced coma. The doctors say if she wakes up, there will likely be permanent damage. But Ms. Nwosu, here's what you need to understand. Adanna's accident wasn't an accident. And you're in danger too. My mouth went dry. What do you mean? Chidi Chukwudi is a careful man. He's been eliminating evidence. The day after Adanna was hospitalized, her personal laptop disappeared from their home. Her backup phone, the one she used to contact me, was lost. And yesterday, someone broke into my office. Nothing was stolen, but files were disturbed. They were looking for something. The recording. Exactly. Which is why I need to know. Do you still have it? All copies. Yes. It's backed up in multiple places. Good. Don't delete it. Don't move it. And don't tell anyone else where it is. She paused. Ms. Nwosu, I'm filing an emergency petition today. I'm going to the media with this story, the real story. And I need you to be willing to testify about what you heard and recorded that night. This was it. The final decision. If I testify, he'll destroy me. My job, my home. Possibly. Probably even. Chidi Chukwudi is vindictive and powerful. But if you don't testify, he gets away with putting his wife in a coma. And eventually, when Adanna recovers, if she recovers, he'll finish what he started. Is that something you can live with? I thought about my mother. About how she'd fought alone for her inheritance because everyone told her to stay quiet, to not make trouble. I thought about Adanna in that elevator, perfect makeup hiding bruises, asking me to call her by her first name like we were friends. I thought about the woman I wanted to be versus the woman I was becoming. Someone who looked away, who stayed safe, who let terrible things happen because speaking up was too costly. I'll testify, I said. The story broke 2 days later. Barrister Okoye didn't just file a petition. She held a press conference, played parts of my recording, presented medical evidence of Adanna's previous injuries, brought forward 2 former housekeepers who'd witnessed abuse but had been paid to stay silent. And she named me, Obiageli Nwosu, ordinary HR officer, neighbor who'd heard too much and decided to speak. Within hours, my phone was exploding. News stations wanting interviews. Lawyers from Chidi's team sending cease and desist letters. My company's legal department calling emergency meetings. I was fired by noon. Bringing disrepute to the organization, they said. My supervisor wouldn't look me in the eye. By evening, I had an eviction notice from Pinnacle Heights. Violation of community standards and resident privacy. I packed my belongings in a daze. Nkechi and 2 other friends helping me load boxes into a truck. I was moving back to my cousin's place in Yaba. Back to the cramped, ordinary life I'd worked so hard to escape. You did the right thing, Nkechi said, hugging me at the door. I wasn't sure if I believed her. The trial took 8 months. Chidi Chukwudi fought every step of the way. His lawyers were ruthless. They tried to discredit my recording, questioned my motives, painted me as an opportunist seeking attention. But Barrister Okoye was better. She presented evidence even I hadn't known about. Financial records showing Chidi had paid off police officers, medical staff, witnesses. She brought forward other women he'd dated before Adanna. Women who'd experienced the same violence but had been too afraid to speak. And when Adanna finally woke from her coma, 3 months into the trial, with speech difficulties and partial paralysis, she testified too. Slowly, painfully, but truthfully. The judge granted the divorce, awarded Adanna a substantial settlement, issued a permanent restraining order. Chidi didn't go to jail. Men like him rarely do in Lagos. But his reputation was destroyed. Folktale lost government contracts. Society turned against him. His power, built on image and connections, crumbled when the truth came out. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was something. 6 months after the trial ended, I was working at a small NGO that supported domestic violence survivors. The pay was half what I'd made before. My apartment in Yaba was a quarter of the size of Pinnacle Heights, but I could sleep at night. Adanna sent me a message on my birthday. Thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked away. You saved my life. I saved her life, but she saved something in me too. The part that believed in doing right even when it cost everything. Would I make the same choice again, knowing what I know now? I think about that question often. The answer, I've realized, isn't about whether I choose differently. It's about understanding that some moments define us not by what we gain, but by what we refuse to ignore. I heard something that night in the corridor, and I refused to unhear it. That refusal cost me my job, my home, my comfortable life. But it gave me something I didn't know I'd lost. My integrity. And in the end, that was worth more than any luxury apartment could ever be. This is TJ Stories, bringing you real tales of courage, justice, and the power of speaking truth. If the story moved you, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, silence protects the powerful, but truth protects the vulnerable. Which side will you choose? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and never be afraid to stand up for what's right. This is TJ Stories, and I'll see you in the next one.